Hello, I'm Mickey, and today Robert, Travis, Mitchell, and I, Team D, are here to tell you about a new game that is designed to help children learn to read, spell, recognize numbers, and solve basic math problems. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Learning with Harry. Harry is an interactive hippopotamus that will eat letters, words, and numbers, provided you can identify them correctly. Learning with Harry will allow children to play against each other or against a computer. In the spelling module, Harry will say a word 3 times. Then letters will randomly appear on a screen. A player can accumulate points by being the first to identify each letter in the correct sequence where it belongs in the correctly spelled word. The player identifies the letter by clicking Harry and dragging him over to the letter and releasing the mouse clicker. If the letter is correct, Harry will eat it. If not, Harry will run back home. The player that correctly spells the word will get the points for the entire round. In the next round, the player can increase the difficulty by increasing from 3-letter words to 4-letter words, or he or she can continue at the same difficulty level. Once the game reaches a point where neither player can correctly spell the word, the game will end, and the player with the most points will be declared the winner. There will be a help button that the player can click, and Harry will help the player to identify the next letter. In the reading module, Harry will say a word 3 times. Then words will randomly appear on the screen. The player will identify the correct word and drag Harry to that word in the same manner as in the spelling module. If the player is correct, Harry will eat the word. If the player is incorrect, Harry will run home. The player that is first to correctly identify the word wins the points for that round. Again, the player can increase the difficulty level by moving from 2-letter words to 3 or more letter words. Players progress through each round, and when neither player can identify the word correctly, the game will end. The player with the most points will win. There will also be a help button that the player can click, and Harry will help the player to sound out the word. In the math module, a mathematical problem will appear on the screen and flash 3 times. Then solutions will randomly appear on the screen. Once the player has found what he believes is the correct solution, he must drag Harry to that answer. If that answer is correct, Harry will eat it. If not, as in previous modules, Harry will run back home. There will be 3 math modules. Module 1 will be to identify the number that matches the spelled out number that flashes on the screen. The second module will be addition. An addition problem will appear on the screen and flash 3 times. Then numbers will randomly appear, and the player must identify the correct answer. Once the player believes he or she has identified the correct answer, they will drag Harry to that answer. If it isn't indeed correct, Harry will eat it. If not, Harry will run home as in previous modules. Module 3 will be subtraction, and subtraction will be conducted the same as the addition module. For all 3 modules, the player will win if he or she has the most points at the end of that round, and the player will then be allowed to proceed to the next level. There will also be help buttons provided in this module as well. Learning with Harry is designed for preschool and elementary school children. It is an interactive game where players will learn the sounds letters make, to spell and read 2 to 7-letter words. In the math modules, players will learn to recognize the spelled number and its relationship to its numerical value. They will also learn to add and subtract single to 3-digit math problems. The personal settings of this game are simple. A player will log in under his or her name and begin the game at the same point where they last logged out, or they can choose to start a new game. There is only one character to this game, and he is Harry the Hungry Hippo, who is hungry to learn new letters, words, and solutions to math problems. At this point, I would like to introduce you to Robert, and he will explain the development of Learning with Harry. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mickey, for the introduction to Learning with Harry. Now that everyone has an idea of what Learning with Harry is, I want to take a couple of minutes of your time and explain the platform that Learning with Harry is going to be run on and the rationale why we picked that platform. Next slide. We chose Windows as the platform to run Learning with Harry. Why Windows? Because Windows is the most and widely used operating system in homes today. On your PC and laptop, there are minimum hardware requirements as well to support Learning with Harry. 16 megabytes of memory, a minimum of 100 megabytes disk space available, and a monitor that will support 1024 by 768 to get the best quality picture of the game. There are several versions of Windows out there. The minimum that Learning with Harry will run with is going to be Windows XP 64-bit version. Of course, you got the 7 and 8 version out there that will work as fine, but all of them have to be 64-bit. Next slide. Our thinking of using Windows as our operating system and platform to run Learning with Harry was all market-based. Doing our research, we found that the majority of homes and businesses use Windows operating system. In this slide, I have a chart that shows and breaks down the percentage of what operating system is being used out in the IT industry and the different versions that are used. As you can see, Windows XP and Windows 7 are up there. And Windows 8, Windows Vista, they're there, but the majority of them are all Windows based. So our thinking again is, let's develop this game towards the Windows based community. I think doing that will give us a bigger return if we spend our resources and time on developing it for Windows. Next slide. To conclude this section of our presentation, I wanted to go over to some major points on the rationale why we chose Windows as our platform for Learning with Harry. And those numbers don't lie. As you saw in the previous slide, the majority of businesses and homes use Windows. Approximately 91% of the market share goes towards Windows. Also, the majority of homes use Windows. And the reason why, it's easier to use than any other operating system. Why Windows? It's the cost. It costs less than getting a Mac, getting a Linux machine. So that's why most homes and businesses go with Windows. Also, the support. There's more support out for Windows than there is any other operating system. And the cost to support it is less than any other system. And that concludes my section of this presentation. Next, Mitchell.
Thanks, Robert. My name is Mitchell Sperling, and I will be talking to you today about the marketing strategy for Learning with Harry. The marketing strategy includes the player interactions, the objectives, rules, and limits, and what the target sales demographic will be. Player interactions. Modern gaming is dominated by a multiplayer gaming experience, whether it be an MMORPG or any of the very popular FPS titles, and I think there is a reason for this. Playing a game by yourself is fun, but it can get boring, and having friends to play with adds excitement to gaming. In order to bring this experience to Learning with Harry, we will have several different modes of play. There will be an offline mode, which will allow the player to play by themselves and test their abilities, as well as a two-player offline mode that will allow players to share the offline experience with friends. Think of this as the traditional single-player campaign and co-op mode. In addition to the offline modes, we will also implement an online and online multiplayer mode. The online single-player mode will allow the player to test their skills but also win achievements and unlock new content by gaining XP. This XP is awarded whenever the player answers a question correctly. Thanks, Robert. My name is Mitchell Sperling, and I will be talking to you today about the marketing strategy for Learning with Harry. The marketing strategy includes the player interactions, the objectives, rules, and limits, and what the target sales demographic will be. Objectives, rules, and limits. The objective of the offline mode would be to complete the game and play through the story. Games are more interesting if they go somewhere, and adding a plot and final challenge to finish the game gives the player motivation to play. The offline two-player mode would let the player play through the campaign with a friend. The online mode adds a little more depth by awarding the player for answering questions correctly. The player would have a profile that they would sign into at the start of the game, and it would track their progress and what medals and achievements they have earned. This can make it more fun for the player and allow them to customize the in-game experience and unlock new avatars and similar goods. Additionally, the online multiplayer would allow players to play with friends over the internet or to play with other people they are automatically matched with. Target sales demographic. Since Learning with Harry is an educational game and is focused on learning fundamental mathematics and spelling skills, its key demographic will be elementary school children in grades 1 through 4. This game would be excellent for a parent who wants to buy their child a game that is both fun and educational, and could possibly also be worked into school curriculums or other educational programs. Because of its educational concept, it would be a unique game that offers both a solid learning platform as well as a rich gaming experience. Thank you for listening, and I will now hand it off to Travis.
Thank you, Mitchell, for the introduction. My name is Travis Miller, and in the next few slides, I'm going to touch on some points made by Mickey, Robert, and Mitchell, and include a few points covering development of the children's educational game Learning with Harry, the Hippopotamus. Learning with Harry the Hippopotamus is a fun, interactive, educational game that teaches kids how to spell and recognize words along with basic math skills such as addition and subtraction, providing challenges with different levels, points, and bonuses with each correct answer. This game is well suited for ages 4 to 10 years of age in a preschool or elementary classroom setting or even at home where the game can be played along with parents and siblings in a fun, relaxing atmosphere. The game is a single player or multiplayer platform so that a teacher or parent can play along with a student, providing help or assistance along the way. The system requirements for Learning with Harry to operate properly include 64-bit Windows XP, Windows 7, or the newly released Windows 8, with at least 100 megabytes of disk space, 16 megabytes of free memory. This game can be played on a laptop or a PC with a mouse. The reasons for choosing Windows as our main platform consist of lower production costs due to a cheaper gaming platform, and Windows is used worldwide, eventually allowing us to include different languages in future release patches. And more importantly, Windows offers the world's largest customer support system. The resources required to produce Learning with Harry the Hippopotamus will require multi-person teams of game developers, with each team specializing in the state-of-the-art programming, game design, and art for packaging. The $28 million price tag will cover the Learning with Harry the Hippopotamus, includes the developers, programmers,
in mass advertisements as well as packaging. The testers will include both private and public testers. This will ensure a top-of-the-line product once it is released to the general public. An online server will be developed in the future to allow classrooms and eventually schools to compete against each other for prizes or fundraising events.